and welcome to the Book by Book, a podcast about the odd book or two we've read. We're your hosts, Scott and Toby, and this episode we're talking about Sphere by Michael Crichton. It's going to be a fairly spoiler-heavy episode, so if that's okay with you, continue on, and I'll see you on the other side. Do you know who Ira Glass is? Does the name ring a bell?
Ooh, hang on, I'm not going to leave the meeting. I'm going to say got it. Do I know who Ira Glass is? No, never heard
Okay,
of
no,
him
fair
before.
enough. He's not even big in America or Canada, unless you're
Right.
sort of subscribed to that. He's like in the world of what he does, he's like a really famous like public broadcast radio
Okay.
journalist presenter. I don't know if you've
Yeah.
heard of like the podcast Serial and This American Life.
I've heard of the podcast serial. Have I heard of the podcast serial? Isn't it like a
Serial's the
true
crime one. That was
Yes,
even
it's
now, if you Google top podcasts ever, that's probably on
mm-hmm.
top. And I think he sort of produced it. It spawned from This American Life. It's like
Right.
little snippets of that. Is that like Americana? You know,
Mm-hmm.
all over the shop. Like,
Mm.
hey, we're covering like the vetting of the presidential candidate. Here's like just a special on like doppelgangers. Not
Mm.
horror stuff, but like a
Yeah.
funny anecdotes. Anyway, just a
Almost like
really interesting
vignettes.
guy who's just doing like broadcast journalism,
Mm-hmm.
but not necessarily news like that. Just slice of life, interesting
Yeah.
stories with people. Like a talk with him last night.
Insightful musings.
Kinda. Here's
Yeah.
just an example of the one he opened up with because he was like talking about old recordings. This guy was saying, and he was sort of he sort of does this thing. It feels to me he sort of not invented it, but he'll do an interview
Mm.
with a bit of jolly music on top, and then the music that will fade down, and you'll hear
Mm-hmm.
his voice talk about what the interview's talking about. So what's
Right.
happening? So like imagine me and you talking, blah blah blah, blah, and then the voice suddenly goes. So what Toby and Scott are talking about here is
Mm-hmm.
Toby's actually pretty angry about this thing that happened at work, and he's going to go on to say this, and then the interview will fade up. And I've got a
Okay.
friend who hates it. It's like, why are you explaining
Yeah.
an audio interview? But it's kind of
Yeah,
his
that's
style thing, yeah.
subtitles.
But he was saying this story about a guy there was like a kid at his like a 9-year-old in and around his office for a while, like someone had to
Mm.
bring their kid in, and it's sort of like walking past this long corridor, like doing the like hey
Yeah.
kids, like a salute and hey sport.
Yeah.
And then
How's
it's
it
like,
going?
and
How
then it's
fast?
like sticking their tongues at each other, like that.
Yeah.
And then he was like, over a week it sort of escalated. And he said he was like in the bathroom, and I don't know, he had his glasses in his top pocket when he came out, like or off his face because he was just in the bathroom. And then he saw like the child at the end of the corridor, and he said he sort of bent down on his knees, like he bent his knees, and he stuck his hands up like pincers and did like a crazy crab walk and was like, "Uh-oh, you're here today." And it's like, he didn't have his glasses at this blurry flick at the
Yeah.
end of the corridor. And then within the talk, this is where he stops the thing and he's like,
Yeah.
I think I've got you all hooked now.
Yeah.
Because what's a good story? And he's like, this is an example of an ABC, but let's face it, it's we know where this story is headed at this
Yeah.
stage. There's only one train stop. There's a bit of a twist because he's like basically knew within the last month that he hadn't really had a chance to meet was like someone with dwarfism had joined HR. So the story doesn't really need to go further than that. But
Oh
it
dear.
was just a really interesting talk. It was just like just all over the shot examples
Yeah.
of how he finds a story to tell. And I don't know, he's got this way of talking. So you might find me not emulating it every episode, but we have talked about it. Me slowing down, I've become very conscious
Okay.
when I re-listen to it.
Yeah.
And he talks. I'm going to try and do my hourglass impression, not really in tone or voice, but give me something to read out. He pauses. He's like this. Um, hey, I'm Hourglass. Today we're talking about the little stories that make a difference in the world to the
Mm-hmm.
people you see every day. And I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a Family Guy skit where he's on the floor, like, why does he keep pausing? Doesn't he have it
Yeah.
written down in front of him? Um,
Can I just as an aside, a polar bear walks into a bar, steps up to the bar and says to the barman, "Gonna get a rum and Coke." The bartender says, "Yeah, sure, but why the pause?" To which the polar bear replies, I was born with them.
Boom, boom. Hey,
Hey, all right, shall we talk Thursday? Catch you.
nice. Um, anyway, doesn't really tie into what we're talking about particularly. It was just a thing on my mind because that was
What
last
did my
night, like
polar bear joke?
an evening with, and we ran as we do. Toby's got the
Mm.
gags.
Hmm.
I've got someone else's gags. Um,
Wait, what now? You've got hostages? I'm
but boom, he can't stop moving into
on a
punland,
roll.
people. Yeah. Where are we? Where's my notes? Um, Toby, we're going to be covering a Michael
Oh,
Crichton novel today.
did Michael Crichton, that I know this guy, he did Jurassic Park, did he not?
He wrote the novel Jurassic Park.
Yes.
He wrote, well, he's at the height. I wouldn't say the height of his fame, but he's one of the few, if not the only person to
Hmm.
have a #1 TV show. Let's just say in America, it makes it easier.
Mm.
A #1 novel
Hmm.
and a #1 movie at the same time.
Whoa, go Michael.
Because Michael Crichton wrote the novel. This isn't one of the pauses. This is me finding my notes.
Yeah. Oh, and while you're pausing,
Hmm.
just to welcome Sabrina. I believe her name's Sabrina, our latest YouTube subscriber.
Mm.
Yeah.
It's been a while. Are you
Shh.
sure we've
Don't tell
given
her.
out
No.
the right email address, Toby? Because we're going on
Well,
to like 3 years. And I'm
yes.
not saying, oh my God, we should be getting
Well, it
loads of
definitely
fan mail
gets.
or hate mail.
Hmm.
We've never got one
No,
non-explicit
that
someone
one,
looking
lovely.
for money. Hey man, listen to the show. Nice one. That
Yeah,
I would
yeah,
have
it would be
thought
nice.
one
Yeah, you would have done in
in a
three
couple of
years.
years. Yeah.
Or
Or some
maybe
hate mail.
Sabrina.
Jesus.
Yeah, maybe
Um,
well, that's probably a good thing. Maybe Sabrina will say hi.
yeah,
Hi,
we got
Sabrina. Anyway.
a Sabrina follower, a follower
Mm.
called Sabrina on YouTube. Um, if you're someone who doesn't like being called out, sorry about that, but it is thank you.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. And hello to Korea as well. Big in Korea. I think we mentioned this last one. So we're going to go hard on Korea. Right, go Korea.
Oh right, yeah. They've
Podcast
gone back down
listeners.
again.
Oh,
Boo,
Korea, will
Korea.
come back.
Yeah, just teased us. So at a high point of his career,
Michael Crichton, yes.
hmm,
I've not read any of his books, but I do know he's a stickler for details and accuracy, isn't he?
well, I think he's I don't get it wrong, Stanford, Harvard.
He's very scientific in his sort of exploration of ideas, and with Jurassic Park, I understand there's a lot of science
He's a
involved in the
Harvard
novel.
medical student,
Well, there we go.
and he worked briefly in the medical research. So okay, well, there's quite a lot to talk about just him, but more just
Hmm.
like pop hits than like
Yeah.
in-depth thing. But I thought, for example, I knew most of his list of books because it's Michael Crichton. He's mega famous. He was reported to be
Hmm.
making 100 million a year at one stage, which is
Why?
astronomical. His first novel, The Andromeda Strain, if you
I've
know,
heard
I
of
think
that.
it's about a satellite that falls to Earth, and it's
Hmm.
about the bio kind of hazard team that are like, there's something that's killed a whole town. There's just a town of dead people because of
Right.
spores.
Okay.
I haven't read it, but it's supposed to be very, very,
Hmm.
um,
I've
like
heard of it.
very much like early King's work. Like that's classic Crichton. Like he will go on
Yeah.
with that sort of thematical thing. But Jurassic Park, Congo, Sphere.
Congo.
So at one point, ER was a #1 TV show.
Hmm.
Congo was a #1 movie, and The Lost
Hmm.
World was a #1 selling book, putting him like one of those
Whoa.
triple threats because he's a showrunner creator for ER.
Wow.
Because I guess he had a medical thing. What I did find out in my research also was that I thought this was his sixth, seventh book. No, 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 no,
Hmm.
no. It's like his 16th. He has like two non de plumes. He was knocking them out as other writers.
Oh,
I've
wow.
only just
Okay.
heard that. I don't know. I didn't. I'm too lazy to look into if that only came out after he died some years
Hmm.
ago. But it's also odd because the name Michael Crichton was flipping huge quite early.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know why
Why?
he was non-diploming.
Yeah.
Uh,
That's a good word though, saying sentence. Nom de plume. Don't really know that one. So a nom
so
de plume is the same as a pseudonym.
kinda.
Hmm.
I don't know if it's more for like a safety thing, like hello, I'm a doctor on a radio show, and I'm going to talk about the controversy of
Hmm.
uh, uh, the vaccine. but I don't want to put my name out there to get caught. So here's a nom de plume, or
Okay.
I'm someone of standing authority and I'm writing racy novels. You know what? Exactly the same as a pseudonym, I think. Just a fancy
Yeah.
French word, I assume.
Right. Okay. Brilliant. Okay. So what are we talking about
We're
today
talking about
then?
Sphere. Do you know about Sphere? Did you see the
Sphere.
90s movie Sphere? Samuel L.
Yes.
Jackson,
Samuel L.
Dustin
Jackson. Yes.
Hoffman, Liv
Yes. Okay.
Schreiber, Sharon
hmm
Stone.
hmm
Um,
Who's the female in that?
Sharon Stone.
Sharon Stone. Right. Yeah.
I
Sorry.
think it's a late 90s film. I
Yes, it
believe it was a
was.
flop.
Yeah, it was. It
It,
didn't do
it
very well.
which is not heartbreaking, but like I think it came out after Jurassic Park,
hmm
after Congo. Now,
Mm.
Congo was a big critical flop, and it's kind of
Mm.
laughed at, but it was a number
Mm.
one movie, I feel like.
hmm
Off the tail of Jurassic Park. Hey guys, the creators of Jurassic Park are making another
Making.
film called Congo, and here's it's like this crazy adventure with an ape. Like I remember seeing Congo as a kid, and it blew my mind. I loved it. If I'm
Did
honest, as
you?
much as Jurassic Park at the time.
Yeah.
That, but keep in mind, I'm also the kid who thought the Mario Brothers movie was amazing. So I just saw it when I was young, and it was just creative as hell, and I just had no expectations going in.
Yeah.
But yeah, I believe Sphere was a flop financially and critically.
hmm
And
mm
my brother had it on VHS, and I'm
hmm
from the era, young listeners, where I didn't even have any non-terrestrial TV. So I grew up with four British channels. So
mm
VHSs were pretty tasty in the world of rental. So I watched Sphere a lot growing up, just because my brother
Oh, wow.
had it
Okay.
on VHS. We were fairly limited to how much VHSs you had. I mean, we
Yeah.
had a lot, but nonetheless, you watch just all the time the things you have. So I
Mm.
really liked it, and I guess I met a friend who equally watched it but hated it at
hmm
college for what he didn't like about it. I quite liked about it.
Right. Okay.
Sort of do these Dustin Hoffman impressions because he does this thing where he's like, I want to know why the squid is knocking on the door. I want to know what the sphere is. From my memory now and
Yeah.
back
Yeah.
then, is he
Yeah.
says, I want to know a lot and then just says
Yeah.
something ridiculous.
Yeah.
It was really
I
fun
think
to imitate, which we
I.
still do now. I don't know if you have
Mm.
like an old friend and a bad movie you love that you just sort of still go on about after
Yeah.
20 flipping
Probably.
years.
Yeah.
Um,
I don't
but
really remember it though, to be honest with you. That's probably a testament to how unforgettable it was. I
I think that
can't.
was kind of the consensus when it was
Mm.
fresh.
Mm.
And I was going to try and watch it, but sometimes I don't even know where I can find that film. My
Yeah.
memory of it, it's kind of close to the book, though.
That's what I
Just
was
some
going to
things are
ask. Is
just a
it? Is
bit
there similarities?
untranslatable, maybe.
Mm.
I'm sure there's certain nuances and maybe certain key things which are cut out.
How
But
long ago did you read the book?
I finished it yesterday, which is,
Oh wow, okay. Bloody hell,
yeah.
so fresh. Okay,
Yeah,
and
I told you I joined that sci-fi book club, and
yes.
it's tonight, so I'm sort of not rushing to read it, but I actually found I was going to skip it because I've been away for like most. You only get a
Mm,
month to do it, and I was away for like 10
to
days, and
read
I
the
was just
book.
busy. hmm
Right, okay, that
And
makes sense.
so I'll give it a go. I'll see. I didn't have a copy. I'm really not trying to buy books, so I was like, the chances of finding Sphere is slim, but you get these free libraries all around, and I just found it in like someone's free take this book pigeonhole. I was like, oh come on, what are
Right.
the chances of Sphere?
Yeah.
So
Can't turn that down, can you really?
because I found not really an audiobook on YouTube, but someone
Mhm.
like me, the equivalent of me reading it out
Okay.
and putting it on, so like an amateur audiobook.
Mm.
But I can only really find the time to listen to it at work. And after about an hour, I was like, be honest, have you absorbed anything? And the answer is
Right.
no. I was just sort of too busy, trying to catch up.
Yeah,
But
completely.
then I found the copy, so
How was that guy's audiobook reading?
it was fine.
Okay, fair play, dude, whoever you are, if you're listening.
Yeah, I also found, which is quite cool, was like an abridged 2.5 hour version with
Okay.
two narrators, which were very American, which was kind of cool, and
Yeah.
like sound effects, which was kind of nice. So it's like a
Oh, that's
semi-radio
cool.
play. So I guess it's more of like an audiobook of the film if it's about two and a
Mm.
half hours.
Mm.
So this was preceded in his
Chronology.
noveling to Congo. He wrote Congo before this,
Okay.
and after it, he wrote Jurassic Park right after this.
Okay.
So he was hot. Like Congo,
Congo,
I'm pretty sure
Sphere,
Congo was a big
Jurassic
book. Sphere,
Park.
Jurassic Park, Rising Sun,
That was
Disclosure,
turned into a film as
The
well.
Lost World.
Avatar. Yeah, too.
Yeah. So I've read a bunch of his latter stuff before this.
Okay.
Next and Prey.
Hmm.
And I loosely remember them. It was a long time ago, but I also remember them kind of being under the same bracket. Like
Right.
he has his themes he loves exploring, I think.
What's next? An AI
So I think
advanced tech?
Prey was like nanobots
Yeah.
that get loose and they sort of form their own monstrous thing. And next was about like corporate companies trying to cash in on like genetics. I
Right.
remember there's
Okay.
literally a talking baboon. That's all I really remember. But I think that interesting one on that was at the end there was like an essay,
Mm.
and it was about his fears about what's going to happen when corporations own your genetics. Where does that put you, Toby?
Yeah.
If you have an operation and somehow they own your DNA or something like that.
Yeah.
That's kind
Yeah.
of what the book is about,
Right.
if memory
Okay.
serves. Those two, my memory, are just very thrilling, fun, quick
Mm.
paced. I need a new word. Every time I've ever said the term beach read, for example, with
Yeah.
Stephen King, you've sort of gone beach read, like you took it as an insult. And I guess
Yes.
now I see why, because it doesn't do the justice. Because if I was to say Sphere is a beach read,
Mm.
um, but
Yeah. Your beach read is it's not some necessarily universally a beach read, is it really? That's
well, I guess for me, I'm thinking like contained and manageable, whilst you're probably
mm.
a bit boozy and in and out. Because,
Right.
for example, I'd say Michael Crichton is as a prime beach read guy,
Mm.
but that's not to say his books aren't incredibly intelligent, and you can feel him behind them,
Yeah.
knowing it's what's that thing? It's like I don't need to know Einstein's theory of relativity. I just need to know that someone else knows it.
Right.
So would you
Okay. Yeah.
rather
Yeah.
read Einstein's book of relativity or a like a
Have an abridged version.
someone
Yeah.
else's notes where they can
Yeah.
try and explain it to me a bit more, and you just have to trust this
Layman.
person
Yeah.
has translated it for you. And that's kind of
Hmm.
where Michael Crichton feels for me. One of his strengths, I would say, is taking very complex, probably quite boring data
Mm.
and giving you enough to get an understanding, enough that
Hmm.
it feels real. And
Mm.
like I said, we might get notes going, "You idiot, he makes that crap up. He's famous for
So,
it."
would you say that Michael Crichton is more or less cerebral than Dan Brown?
I've never read you, Dan Brown.
You what now?
But doesn't he famously get slated for being a terrible author?
I don't know, but
I thought he
I've read like
famously
a
is
bit of those.
terrible but successful. Like he has
Hmm.
his formula.
See, this is what I'm getting at. This is where I
Mm.
would say he's more beach read. Dan Brown is beach read. He's
Mm.
literally like you've had a really heavy night in the clubs, and now you're resting on the beach, and you
Mm.
need something you do not have to think about at all.
Mm.
Um, that's
No,
what
fair enough. Yeah,
that's what
I
I would
need a new word
classify
for
as
it then, I
beach.
suppose.
Mm.
But for me, what I mean by beach read is just matter. I once took this 1,000-page sci-fi epic
Yeah,
dysfunction reality to a beach. And it was just nightmarish because it was just trying to learn concepts on races. And each chapter was like
yeah.
not just a new character, but a new planet, a new solar system away. And like I said, for me on beach, I'm probably just slowly. I'm not getting drunk, but I'm not sober at the same time. I'm just sipping
Yeah,
on beer in the
yeah.
haze, and it's like you're probably overeating on holiday if you're anything like me. And then you go for a swim,
Hmm.
and then it's all sunny, so it's like I'm gonna sit on. I'm gonna. Oh fuck! I fell asleep. Oh, where was I? I was gonna read a page.
Yeah,
Now I fell
that
asleep
was it.
again. Yes, I guess there's that thing of a beach read doesn't have to be simple in
Mm.
story or plot, but it has to be told simply, I think.
Right.
I also think we've probably brought this up several times. It needs to go on our do not talk about at least for a year list. It comes up once in a
Yeah.
while.
And
Mm.
pause.
There's always new listeners. There's always one new
Mm.
listener. That's for you,
Yeah.
Sabrina. Enjoy
Yeah.
our beach read
Yeah.
prognosis
Definition
debate.
of.
Mm. I'm going to go live and do a Toby roundup review and get this
Okay.
little review started. Sphere by Michael Crichton. In the middle of the South Pacific, 1,000 feet below the surface of the water, a huge vessel is discovered resting on the ocean floor. It is a spaceship of phenomenal dimensions, apparently undamaged by its fall from the sky, and most startling, it appears to be at least 300 years old. Dun, dun, dun.
What we need is Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah. Let's go to this is Goodreads, uh,
Hmm.
listeners and Toby. Let's go to the 1 stars. Let's just give you. I'm just going to throw one bad review out there. Who do I like the look of? Davy Tron. Thank you for your review on Goodreads. You're getting a little call out on the Book by Book. If you like young adult fiction, books that are written specifically to be turned into movies, stupid characters, Spartan diction, and the patriarchy, then this book is right up your alley. Oh, I'm not even sure I know what Spartan diction is. Do you know what that
Yeah, I think
means?
it's just shouty, screamy stuff. I am Sparta.
Oh, I guess so, yeah. This is Stephen. During my Crichton spree in junior high, I considered this the best of the lot, and my memories of it were fond enough that I graded it with 4 stars. In hindsight, picking it up again on a whim 21 years later was possibly a mistake, though. It was almost painful to read. It deserves credit for maintaining my interest in reading fiction long enough to eventually discover well-crafted prose, multi-dimensional characters, and believable dialogue, but not for being a good novel. It may be unfair to reverse my opinion of a book I first read as a member of its target audience, but I believe this one was intended for adults, and it should not be.
Ooh,
Oh.
that's a damning indictment if ever I heard
Hmm.
one.
This
Gosh.
book is, I think this book is a 1987 book, just for
Mm-hmm.
reference. If people are reading it when it first came out, that was late
I've
80s.
been 10.
Let's hit some 5-star reviews. It has an average rating, just if you wanted to know, of a 3.83 out of 5. Mostly 4 stars, going obviously a little chart thing. But let's have a quick look at the top review. Another fantastic read by Crichton. Kept me turning the pages and loved the setting, atmosphere, and sense of dread. Highly recommend, says Vicky.
Oh.
I think what you do is you look for something that can spark a conversation or is interesting. And what I do is look for the shortest ones to get out the way.
Yeah,
Um,
I do go through it beforehand and pull the ones that I like most of that have the sort of controversial opinions and things like that that can offer up
this is
a
why we shouldn't go live. Because
no.
here's one that will spark something in you, Toby, from Noel.
Mm-hmm.
5 star, it is awesome.
Go
Okay, that's it
on.
with the roundup reviews.
Good, nice one, Noel. Summed it up
Um,
beautifully.
yeah, I mean,
Awesome.
there's a lot
Why
of
is it
like,
awesome, Scott?
hmm. Well,
Tell me.
I'm on the I enjoyed it, right? Is it a bit of a product of its time? Sure, I guess you could
Mm-hmm.
argue that. I did have a quick look through some reviews yesterday, and something that kind of comes up is that it feels a bit sexist and racist at times. But we'll get into that
Right.
as we
It's a
go.
quite chunky book by the looks of it.
Mm, close to 400 pages.
Okay, yeah, so relatively chunky
Um,
in the.
a few people said they found it too slow and not finishable, but I found it to be the opposite myself. It reminded me of a little not finders keepers. What's the one? What's your favorite one?
End of
First
watch.
one, the
Mr. Mercedes.
Mr. Mercedes. In that
Mm-hmm.
it hits a nice pace and
Mm.
it sort of you can feel its speed. You know what I mean? It's
Mm.
for me it was kind of unputdownable.
Okay, well, that is a good sign of
Partly
something.
because of its pace, not necessarily,
Mm.
oh, I need to know what happens next. It's always tricky, I find, reading a book of a film you've seen.
Mm-hmm.
But given that, like I said, I don't really remember the film. It's been
No, I don't.
20 years maybe since I've seen it
Yeah.
last, to be fair. But that kind of seems like it's Michael Crichton's MO, no? Like he knows how to
Yeah.
write a thrilling page turner.
Mm-hmm.
My experiences of him, because we talked about how I read Next and Pray, and I remember feeling the same. I also read Congo about 2 years ago, and we were going to review it. I don't know if it made an edit when I said coming up next week is Congo because I've just started reading it,
Mm-hmm.
and I like I said, I love that film.
Yeah.
Um, I hated it.
Did
Actually, I
you?
sort of didn't want to review it because I didn't just want it to be a damning report, when you don't really have much
Yeah.
nice to say about it. Because it's supposed to be this Amazonian romp. 2/3 of the book are just getting there. They're just on a plane from like, getting this chimp, this gorilla from, I don't know, London to like Bucharest where they have to get the next flight and they meet up with like dodgy politicians they have to get paperwork through. And then they're in like, I don't know, somewhere else. And it's like,
This
oh,
is what I'm saying
pirates,
about.
we've been kidnapped by pirates. And it's like, okay,
Mm.
can we get to the jungle? I kind of wanted
Mm-hmm.
the film takes good liberties and it's set in the jungle mostly from what I
Mm.
remember. Whereas the Congo book, it's more the journey to the Congo, which I
Yeah.
found a bit like, the stuff that I wanted to be the meat of it is kind of the climax and wrapped up.
But listen, have you read Jurassic Park?
No, it's on my list though. I can't
But
wait.
that's I think quite similar in that it's about what it is about and what everybody knows it about. But the book's actually quite science heavy and spends a
Yeah,
lot of
I
time
can see
going
that.
into the.
I had a copy
Okay.
as a kid because I was such a fan, and I think my dad
Mm,
was a Crichton fan. And I tried to read it, but again, it's just instantly here's some split up about DNA.
hmm.
But I've heard the book is darker than the film.
Okay.
I've heard it goes there where the
Yeah.
film was family friendly. I've
Right.
also there's
Okay.
a famous thing where there was fighting to put it in the film where Timmy rides a triceratops. Some things in books can work because you're
Yeah.
playing with your imagination to build. Something in films can't. I worked on the movie, I think it's Angels and Demons, the sequel to the Da Vinci Code.
Yeah.
And spoiler here, but there's a scene where a priest flies a helicopter away, jumps out, and uses his priest cloak robes to parachute down to safety.
Oh
And I've heard
wow.
in the book, it's like, okay, it's a bit silly, but it works
Oh
because it moves
wow.
past. I think in the film, he just has a parachute because it's like that would look,
Hmm.
you're showing us the physics doesn't work.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Basically.
you know,
So just the book was written in 1987 and the film was released in 1998, so
mm,
11 years later.
mm.
And I think the reason I watched it was because Sharon Stone was at the height of her pop.
Mm.
She was pop culture. She'd done Basic Instinct in 92
The
and
still
then
image was out from Basic Instinct, is what you're saying.
1993 Sliver. So she'd done a lot of erotica type things, and then she was into a specialist and
Mm.
other things. So
Here's
she
a
was in the
tangent,
midst of
Tobes.
it.
We
Hmm.
don't get those erotic thrillers anymore. It doesn't
What
really seem like it's its own genre like it used to be in the 90s.
in books or films or
In film,
both? In film, yeah, no, not well, no, not really, not as much. I mean,
I
if you
don't
go
think
to
so.
Amazon Prime, they throw up quite a few cheap ones that have been made in, well, always
But
feel
I guess
like by
that, right? Like
students, but
it got cheap and a bit embarrassing.
mm,
No shade to any actresses, like I suppose, or actors.
no,
I just
yeah,
mean
they are.
they were a
Although there's
big,
an
they were a number one thing. You know what I mean? What's the
mm,
one with James Spader and all the cameras and just erotic thriller was
Crash,
huge.
mm,
Oh, I mean, Crash, that's Cronenberg is in his own world, but yeah,
yeah, yeah,
I
there
don't know.
was
Yeah, I guess they tried to
there
bring
is
it back with 50 Shades, right? 50 Shades
yeah,
was
50
Sam Taylor
Shades
Johnson, a
was a
pretty renowned
popper.
director.
Yeah,
Um,
there's a new one coming out with Gemma Ortega and Martin Freeman that's causing a bit of furore at the moment. The age gap between the two actor and actress, and it's
yeah,
about
I've been
her
reading
being
that,
his
and I want to
teacher and
say,
his.
but it's a movie about an
Hmm.
inappropriate relationship.
Mm.
That doesn't count as creepy because it's not James Bond, and he's seducing this woman, and all was fine.
No, it's a
The the
counterculture, isn't it?
the relationship is the point. From what I gather, if you
Hmm.
like, I get it. It's like, but you don't have to show us. But it's like, but if I go into a film and I know the film is about a teacher seducing a student, or whatever the
Yeah,
twists of the film might be, I don't know if I can complain that it was not nice watching a teacher seduce
yeah,
a flippant
a
student.
student.
I
Yeah,
haven't seen it. I put my hands up,
no, no,
but I see what you mean. Yeah, I guess sex
it's,
sells, but it's different
mm,
though. Like,
yeah, it's
what was
still there, but it's
Passengers?
just.
I felt like when Passengers came out, they wanted it to be they. I think they faked it. I think they knew it wasn't steamy,
Hmm. Hmm.
but they were like, it's two of Hollywood's hottest young actors, Chris Pratt and Jennifer Lawrence,
Yeah,
alone in space, and it's a bit steamy. It was a big
Jesus, a real
steamy
creepy
pile of
film, wasn't it?
poop in the end.
But
What a disappointment!
it just the whole idea of
I thought the
like
concept was stunning. That
yeah,
to me,
that's
it
exactly
had
what
me
I'm
on
getting at. Yeah,
spec. Um,
it was really great idea. Yes, I don't necessarily think it was realised brilliantly, but I don't think it was a steaming pile of shit though. I still quite enjoyed it, and it still hit that sort of the bit of the bar when the bartender just
yeah,
drops the
it had its
bomb.
moments,
You're
but
like,
that
whoa,
is
fuck
what
yeah,
I
they've
want the film
actually.
to be about. And it
Mm,
loses its bottle and it
yeah, it
becomes
does. Yeah.
some action thing. And I
Hmm.
think what's quite clear is that they didn't want to show Chris Pratt, like Chris Pratt's likable and
Yeah.
bankable. No one's going to buy
Yeah.
him as a villain. Like,
Yeah.
why? What? I don't know. It
Yeah.
just
Completely.
wimped out.
Mm.
What doesn't
Unlike the
wimp
novel
out
we're
is
here to
spirit.
review.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically, yep, like I said, they find a spaceship, they find an
Mm.
alien artifact deep under the ocean. and they
Mm.
call in my main man, and he
Samuel.
is Dustin Hoffman. Oh no, no, no,
Oh,
no, no.
oh,
This is part of the white savior complex, which people don't
okay.
appreciate of this film because it comes down
Right.
to three characters. Dustin Hoffman
Mm.
is a psychologist.
Mm-hmm.
And a long time ago, he was hired by the government to like, yo, if we make first contact, what do we do? What's the
Okay.
first port of call? And he sort of needed the money in the job. And it was a bit of a joke to him.
Mm.
Like a lot of the questions, he was just like, don't know. Like, how do we talk to them? So I don't know. We haven't seen them yet. Like, what
Yeah.
if it's an amoeba? What if it's just a life form
Yeah.
that's space dust?
Yeah.
You're theorizing about movies. Like, what do you mean? How do we speak to
Yeah.
them? How do we speak to what? And then years later, it's like, yo, you wrote this paper. And he's like, and he almost laughs and says, don't take that seriously
Mm.
before he realizes that they have. And a biologist, Sharon Stone,
Mm-hmm.
and a mathematician, Samuel L. Jackson, and a few
Mm-hmm.
others, like marine specialist biologists.
Mm-hmm.
There's a small crack team are put together and they're going to go down to see it.
Mm-hmm.
I think what's key is one of the person kind of whips out or has a sort of anxiety attack before and can't go. And I think
Mm-hmm.
he would be the person that kind of is the team leader.
Mm.
And
Oh,
that's
okay.
kind of what throws a bit of the story into like a turmoil.
Spanner in the works.
So like the solid
Yeah.
plan that makes sense is disrupted from an early point. And they
Mm-hmm.
go down and there's a storm coming, which means, oh, we're going to send you up because the storm could last a few days and you don't want to be
Mm-hmm.
down there. So they've set up a base next to this alien artifact and they're just going to
Mm-hmm.
go. And there's a lot of sort of, I guess, if you don't know it, how deep diving works, you have to sort of pressurize yourself. You have to
Yeah.
go down slow and come
Decompartment.
up slow. You have to, in this, they have to breathe a certain percent of some oxygenated air, which means
Mm-hmm.
it's more dangerous for them to come up quickly. And when you know it, whatever reason, the storm hits early. Maybe someone's sabotaging and not telling the news, and they're stuck down
Mm-hmm.
there and they're cut off. It means they can't go up if they want to because there's no one there. But what's nice is they won't feel this. There's literally a hurricane above them, but so deep
Yeah.
down, they're nice and chill. And
So far, so
so,
abyss.
yeah. And let's get some names in here. Dustin Hoffman's character is Norman,
Mm-hmm.
and he's literally described here and there as a little bit schlubby, on the kind of the wrong side of 40, I think.
Mm-hmm.
He literally says a couple of times like, I'm the anomaly here. I shouldn't be, I'm civilian. Like the mathematician and the biologist are also civilian, but they're more like, it makes sense you're here.
Yeah, their
I'm a
purpose.
psychiatrist and you found a spaceship. But I
Yeah.
guess he's kind of there to monitor them, just I don't know, just to put a bit of an everyman in the
Mm-hmm.
shoes. So yeah, like I said, he's sort of just described as like he's a bit like Roy Schneider in Jaws. Like he's not the expert. It's people can explain to him the science.
Mm.
He's a bit vehicular. And so they're down there and they get on the ship. There's a few Marines down with them, there's a captain, and then instantly they see like language in English and they're like, oh, okay, so this is not an alien spacecraft.
Mm.
What is this? So they sort of figure out like this is from the future. This is tech that doesn't quite exist, but we can see it going that way. But it's also been here for 300 years, give or take. So it's
Mm.
clearly something from the future. It's come back here in the past. What, why, who, when, all the W's that make an
Mm-hmm.
interesting story.
Mm.
And in one of the rooms, they find the sphere, a sort of 7 foot. Well, I don't really need to describe it because sphere does the job.
Yep.
It's you can't really you can sort of touch it. It's sort of liquidy hard. I think.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's described as that thing where the film takes over. the
Yeah, 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 yeah,
the
yeah.
visuals of the film have
It
taken
kind
over what I've
of,
been told.
from what I remember, it's almost a mashup of The Abyss and Event Horizon.
Mm, I think it's just limited to its effects all the
Mm.
time. Imagine
Yeah,
being in the 90s and trying to make a sphere look alien and mystical
yeah.
and mysterious and threatening, even though it's just a round hole. I do remember a scene in the film where they realized that the sphere is reflecting everything but them,
Oh
which was
yes,
kind of
yes.
cool.
No, that's a good callback actually.
I don't think
Like
that's in the
that.
book. So basically, one by one, well, um, Harry goes in. The mathematician Samuel L. at one
Mm.
point goes in, and this is a very strange sense the book has. For all me saying it's very thrilling and page turnering, there's a lot. There's a lot of I'm tired. I'm going to bed. It's like they're racing to get up because of the storm. They're a bit
Yeah.
freaked out. They don't know what's what. They start finding strange jellyfish and things, and they just find out they can't go up. At the
Mm.
exact same time, they look at security footage and see the sphere open up and one of them walk inside it. And Dustin Norman is like, I'm tired, man, and goes to bed for an hour. I'm like,
Wowzers.
are you? I guess they're trying to get through the exhaustion of it all. Sure.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like that happens a lot throughout the book. They just
Right.
stop to eat and sleep. Um,
Brilliant.
I don't know. It's really spiked out to me. It's like that's kind of energy killing. Literally, you
Yeah.
just found out you're stuck down here, and an alien orb has just eaten one of your crew members. I'm going to crash out for an hour.
Now's a good time to get some
Sort of like
sleep.
there's too much information going on here. And then so Harry comes out and he's like shaking and he just doesn't really remember anything. And
Okay, so he
that's
goes in, he
when
comes out again. So he
yeah,
survives.
they just like he's gone for like an hour or two. And
Hmm.
then it's like this is what I mean. It's like surely you would rush to the sphere. If I
Yeah,
saw
yeah,
on a videotape
completely.
you walk in, I'd rush to it, not go, oh my God, and then just keep watching
Hmm.
on the security cameras. Like what
He'll be
no.
fine.
Yeah, really. Like take a camera. So he comes out, he doesn't really remember, and then they start talking with the sphere. Here's a
Right.
fun thing we get. This is very Michael Crichton, I think. Like the computer starts getting signals, and it's like zeros and ones and code. And the
Hmm.
mathematician, this is where he kind of kicks in. It's like, okay, well, we can look for the alternate prime. I'm making this up if I'm honest. I look for the
Hmm.
ultimate prime numbers, and there's a pattern. Look for repeats, and there's this, and suddenly we see gaps. So then, what is a block page of numbers? The next
Hmm.
page is a block page of numbers with gaps and
Hmm.
underscores. And then after a few of these, it's like, don't you see what this is? And they're like, what? It's like, it's a diagram. He sent us a picture of itself. It's like, what are you talking about? It's like, squint and look at the gaps. And this code makes a picture.
Hmm.
No, it doesn't. But either reader was totally squinting, trying to look for like, oh yeah, can I?
Yeah.
And he's literally going, no, it's a bit, this here, this is an arm. And for about 4 or 5 minutes, I'm squinting before I realize, hang on a minute. No, there's no picture here. That's the whole point. But it's kind of a fun
Brilliant.
thing, I guess. It's
Yeah.
this is what put me off Jurassic Park as a kid. Just flipping through, kind of, like just seeing blocks of code and DNA helixes.
Hmm.
It's like that's not. I've seen the movie. They got it over in one cool presentation with Hammond, and there's not really much
Yeah.
detail in the DNA for you to know. I was just too young to read it, I think, when the film
Yeah,
came
yeah,
out,
completely. Totally get what you're saying.
advertising of
Yeah.
the book. So then they sort of figure out that this code is a keyboard but spiraling. It just goes to the point, I'll skip, where they can literally just talk to the entity, and it codes back. And it
Oh,
has that eerie, not threatening, but it talks childlike. So if
right.
you've ever seen any Twilight Zones where there's like a child
Hmm.
god who can bend reality, and it's scary because it's like we know what happens when something powerful is childlike. Is that
Yes.
like we know what kids are like? Like I'm going to pull the legs of this spider, and it's not necessarily sinister for a child to do that. It's
Hmm.
just a strange experimenting with not
Yes, it's
biology, but
curiosity.
yeah, and power
And you
over cruel.
almost feel like the cat.
Yeah, power over cruelty. Right. Just
Hmm.
I don't think okay, outside of most psychopaths talk to animals. I just mean, burning ants with a magnifying glass. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, it's a stage some kids go through and it's not that worrying.
Mm.
So when this entity that the name Jerry, it's like, hi, I'm fine. Good to meet you. How are you?
Mm.
It has this childlike talk to it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's they
Innocence and
mhm.
yeah.
And this is kind of where our Norman steps in because everyone else is hitting the science. And
Mm.
he's the one, because he's our vigilant and we're more in his head than anyone else is.
Yeah.
He's trying to sort of get to the psychology of it all. And then so there's like a swarm of jellyfish envelopes them and they go out and get a sample. And it's like, these aren't jellyfish that we know of. This is a new species. So we're just going to get this for prosperity. Oh, there's something else. Oh, this is also a brand new. What are the chances of finding two unknown species before? Whilst this
Mm.
is happening, we're freaking out. It kind of turns into like a attack of the sea life for a good chunk because a giant
Mm.
squid comes And slowly, what's really nice is the condensed feel of this small crew trapped in here.
Yeah.
And one by one, people start dying quite horrific ways. Some people are just mobbed by this new jellyfish, and like the Marines kind of expendable-ish, and the captain starts dying to, um, because we need bodies to kill. And so a lot of this book is just figuring out who and what the
Excellent.
sphere is. And I kind of need to move into spoiler territory.
Yeah, okay.
That's cool.
Going to say,
So,
do we actually ever find out what the sphere is? Because I cannot for the life of me remember.
well, it's that thing where we get strong theories, but we just don't know. I'm going to
We're
give
never
you
given
callbacks to
conclusive.
our episode of A, Roadside Picnic,
No, yes, yes.
and B, A Canticle for Leibowitz, would you believe?
Oh, wow.
Because they start finding like the Samuel L. Jackson talks about how he was terrified of the novel 2000 Leagues Under the Sea. And he's the one who's been in the sphere. So they start getting this feeling like, I think he's subconsciously making this stuff happen. At one
Right.
point, what I really like is every now and then it's like, yeah, go, there's a kitchen back there, go make yourself a sandwich. And they're in there like, hang on, this kitchen didn't exist before. There was no way there was a kitchen with ham and cheese and bread. What is going on? There's one point where there's like another man. There's like a black soldier. Like, hello, I'm here. I'm here. And like, oh hi, did you come from above? Are you the rescue? Oh my god, the rescue's here! And they run, and then they're like, that guy just disappears. And like, but there was a man, and they look on the security and they can see him. So there's very physical manifestations happening, which I love. There's nothing more terrifying. Not nothing more terrifying, but I find it very spooky and eerie. That idea of reality is bending and
Yeah.
you're caught in it. Any film where someone has that realization that they thought they were free, they thought they were free, and then like they were trapped or all along or something like that.
Or you see somebody at the end of your bed and you convince yourself it wasn't true, and then you find out later on it was true.
Yeah,
Gerard,
this sort of
Gerard's game being an
mhm.
example of that.
So a lot of that, and it kind of comes down to just our three left. Everyone's dying.
And this is all still in the book. This is all book
This
focused.
is all book, yeah.
Yeah.
And then it's like Beth, not Jodie Foster, Sharon Stone's like, hey,
hmm
it's not Harry, it's you, Norman. Remember the story how like when you were young, you were supposed to be watching your brother and he got stung by jellyfish and he was fine, but you felt guilty. This is
hmm
your manifestations, your fears. You've been in the sphere. And he's looking back at the tapes like, oh no, she's been in the sphere. Everyone's been in the bloody sphere. Everyone's got this manifestation power. Maybe everyone kind of has a link to what the giant, who could be manifesting
Yeah.
this giant squid. And, there's just unrevealing of like, maybe it's not Jerry, the name of the alien. Maybe it was Harry. Oh, but your middle name is like Harrison. So maybe it's you. The who goes there, the thing
Mm.
paranoia kicks in, which is quite nice. We're just not necessarily cat and mouse, but this for me the strength of the book, which is a fair chunk of the latter half.
Yeah.
A little too much of all the squid stuff because it's a
Right.
constant threat, and it was cool, and I kind of wanted to go cool. Let's move on to the next
Yeah.
stage of what's
The
happening. Let's
next
go
threat.
more cerebral. Let's do the interstellar through the bookshelf levels of like,
Yeah.
you know. But we don't. It kind of that the a lot of the cerebral threats remain the ocean and the ocean life, which is fine.
hmm
Like I said, it still goes fast. I just wanted it to be more, keep going with creativity.
Mm. Do you think it's
Um,
almost creature feature?
it does, that chunk of it does take over for a fair part.
Yeah.
Um, so it ends with a race against the clock with people setting up explosives to blow it up because they don't know what to do and who's in control of the manifestation. And I guess this is where like this is white hero savior complex that he has to go in himself to obtain the power. And
hmm
because he's a psychologist,
Mm.
and because basically what the sphere does is give you power of creativity, you have to be in touch with your inner psychology and you have to understand your fears and your thoughts, which is why when he gets the power, he's sort of he can control it, he can use it to in his
Yeah.
advantage. He can basically, become Neo a little bit. Um,
Yeah.
and basically the mathematician genius black guy sort of is sidelined and has to be saved. And the marine biologist woman, who was sort of quite strong, described as a little bit muscly and kind of kicking ass and fierce, is left like crying. They all get alienated from each other, and basically Norman has to kind of
revert to types,
become godlike and save everyone. So I think that's where they're like, hey, this doesn't feel nice, because it's brought up. Beth quite throughout it, I guess, being a female in the science is just has a warranted chip on her shoulder about it's a male dominated industry, and when a man messes up, it's like, keep going, son. When she messes up, it's the woman, you know, that's classic woman.
They're too emotional.
So I guess to have that her part of her character is a little disappointing, how her character did end up.
Yeah, I'm with you.
And so what is the sphere?
Is the question.
We don't really find out.
And it sounds like
so we understand that this ship probably has been through black holes.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cool mysteries. For example, they find the crew, and there's just one woman in a like a locked in a status thing, but dead, long dead. And they're talking about her, and they're just philosophizing about what might have happened. And then without any real more on par with Luther, if this makes sense to you, than Sherlock. Because I'm thinking about the TV show Luther, where he just says, I know the type. Yeah, I'm in his head. And that's enough for him to say, he'll be at King's Cross at 2:30 with a gun in his hand. And he is. There's no Sherlock showing the thought process and the evidence. There's just someone smart saying, I know, I'm smart. So they come up with these theories about who this woman is. And so Beth is like, I think she was the captain. I think she tried to save the crew. And Harry's like, no, I think it's her fault. I think she did something to try to save her skin. And it doesn't really go anywhere. It's just sort of on par of how the book unfolds. It's just, we're not going to get solid answers. So in the end, they escape. I guess I won't go into too much more, but it's the three of them having to come up with this, like, what on earth do we tell people? And Norman's like, well, are we all believing this is a time traveling ship? And they're like, yes, there's no doubt about that. And he's like, well, I thought we were all going to die down there, because if this is how time travel works, we'd know, someone would know, there'd be reference to it. There would be a note for us, because we can tell them what happens, and they can say, okay, and in the future, when the ship's going back, they go, yo, this is going to crash. So we die because no one is going to discover the ship. So they realize they can kind of wipe their memory of it. And that way it's sort of safe, I suppose. And this is where the philosophizing comes in. Was the sphere a test from aliens, and did we just fail it? That's Norman's theory. And Harry says, well, imagine if you're just like this tiny little space bug floating through space, and you come to a communication satellite from us, and you open it up and you're exploring, and there's all this fun wiring and you don't know what it is. Suddenly you find yourself in the battery cell and you get fried to death. All these little aliens could be like, it's a test, we failed. We have no idea what this is. This could be a part of a whole. It could be a battery. Very much like I was saying, Roadside Picnic. They just don't know, and there's kind of no way of knowing what this is. But it's dangerous, and they don't want the military getting their hands on it, that's for sure. Which brings me to the Canticle for Leibowitz, because the discussion is like, this is the find of the century. Quite a few of these characters are shown to be flat out egotistical, literally going, can I have it on record that I said that and I found this discovery first? Like, they're all down there discovering, and they're all trying to get their name in the book. So do you come and say, yo, this is the discovery that's going to change the world? Or do you say, this is dangerous? We might end the world if we do this. The Canticle for Leibowitz. So when are we ready for this? And it's kind of how the book ends. There's a little hint.
That's a good analogy, actually. It's a good link between Leibowitz and that, actually. Good spot.
There's a little hint that Beth doesn't wipe her mind.
Right.
I'm not. I had to be told that in like the Wikipedia. I guess it's just, I kind of thought they were flirting. He's like, what? Oh, because they sort of rewrite reality in their heads to make it an accident early on. Even it's a bit weird because they're basically all the footage tapes, I think, survived. But anyway, yeah, that's kind of how it ends on a. I
So
guess a
they
hope.
wipe their minds of their knowledge of this thing that's on the base of the floor.
Yeah, they reset their minds to say that there was like a technical error that exploded, and and they got out. Just
Right.
these three.
Do they blow the sphere up?
So there's a ticking clock. There's a fun bit where it's like everyone's sharing the power, so you've got to knock the other guy out because they're counteracting. And Norman, because he had the most control, is trying to make the
Hmm.
clock go backwards, which is working. But Beth is sort of half conscious, and she's the one who wants to blow it up, at least subconsciously. So the clock's
Hmm.
like going forward, and they've already half knocked her out. So it's like we got to kill her. We can't kill her. How do we knock her out again without hurting her too much?
Hmm.
There's quite a fun bit that, like, oh God, like everyone's fighting for control of something that's
Hmm.
imaginative. And I guess, like I was saying, the roadside picnic tie-in was like, spoiler for the end of that, as it were, listeners, for a roadside picnic, but it ends with like you're going to be granted your deepest wish, not the wish that you're going to say out loud, but your genuine heart's desire.
Hmm.
And how do you know what your heart's desire is?
Hmm.
So if you're stuck with something that is reading your imagination subconsciously, how because this giant squid, none of them really wanted it to attack. It was just they were in this very tense situation, and past phobias and fears, and you know the
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
the Freudian subconscious was floating high to the surface, and kind of arguably that squid wiped out half the crew and killed people in brutal ways.
Yeah.
That's kind of fair. I kind of dug it. Let me go through some notes. I don't know if you have any questions at all. I did find it rip roaring. A lot of people said they found, not a lot of people,
Hmm.
but some people said this is slow and arduous. I can kind of see that if mathsy adventure isn't your thing.
Yeah.
I don't think it's too hard on any of the science personally.
That's good.
I think it does a really good way of slapping it down in layman's terms that the
Do
few
you do you?
things I didn't
Cool.
understand, I was okay with. I get the gist. They're
Hmm.
talking about time and space, and he's
Yeah.
just using an analogy that kind of went over my head a bit.
Right.
But I was sort of all right with it because my understanding of
Yeah,
time
yeah.
and space works with what they're saying about it.
Yeah. Do you think it is a YA novel, as some one of our
I,
Goodreads
in
reviewers
the book group last
suggested?
month, one of them was talking about they read like Anne Rand's The Fountainhead
Yeah.
at 11. And I was like, I've tried to read that a few years ago and it went, it's too much for me. You
Hmm.
read bloody Anne Rand at 11?
Hmm.
Obviously, when I was 11, I was reading Star Wars stuff. But
Yeah.
I guess it's not a YA novel, no. Like, there's no hero. I mean, okay, the main
Hmm.
guy, but it's like it's about middle-aged men,
Hmm.
science.
Yeah.
Um,
So it's definitely not pitched at that sort of age range, would you
no,
say?
God, no, I really don't think so. For me, I mean, being here in the mid 2020s, my understanding of YA is pretty different. This being an 80s
Yeah.
book, it could be different. I don't know what the big YA of that era was.
Hmm.
Was it more childish? Was I guess
Hmm.
was I don't know, Enid Blyton and the Famous Five? That's more children's books, right? That's not
Yeah,
YA.
yeah, yeah, definitely.
But was Stephen King YA in his time?
Yeah. I guess yeah, yeah, I don't
Because it's
know.
definitely accessible to the teens. I can't see a market for the teens. There's
No.
no particular romance in here for the teens. There's no fun
Hmm.
gossip. Not to put down
Good.
teens and
That's
say
a
what it's
good
like me.
actual question. When did the YA subgenre become a subgenre, I guess?
Mm.
Because if you think back to the 80s, were there YA novels? Not really. That I can
Well,
think
what were
of.
those vampire novels? What was Brian Necromonscope? Brian
No.
Lumley. Is horror, I guess,
Hmm.
can horror be YA?
Hmm.
But that's not, I guess YA needs to be both sexes. There's no
Hmm.
pretending at the time the Necromons books were accessible to both, but it never felt they were ever trying to like get teen girls in, for example,
No.
those
No.
books. You know what I mean? Like in a marketing sense.
Hmm.
My partner is currently reading the book A Lesson in Chemistry, I think, a history in
Right.
chemistry, and it's a really renowned book, I believe, and it's about a chemist, a female chemist who's very intelligent, and the cover she has just makes it look like some cosmopolitan
Hmm.
like fun romp about a girl in
Hmm.
heels and a handbag trying to get a guy, and it's like this is the cover they've used to sell
Hmm.
to a market, It's like Harry Potter. They have literally two books, one for kids and a completely different polished version that adults can read and feel better
Yeah,
because the
yeah,
cover doesn't have the specky kid in it and look
yeah.
like a kid's book. Um,
Okay.
mm.
Well, I would say it's piqued my interest. I don't know whether I'd necessarily go and read the book in any hurry, but I might rewatch the film
I
just
think
to,
you'd love it. I think you'd
yeah.
honestly like this book enough, and not
Mm,
something you would remember in years to come. But like I
no.
said at the time, if the End of Watch trilogy hadn't been king a bit, and you just read that first one, like
Mm,
who's that crime guy, Joe Nesbet or something
yeah,
like
yeah,
that,
yeah.
like that, or even the Dan Brown thing, like this is, I'm not going to run out and become the biggest fan of this,
Hmm.
but I will remember this as something I really liked. Like, what's that book you
Hmm.
once read, the Raw Sharp Texts?
Mm, mm.
Something like that. Like when
Yeah,
you
yeah,
remember you've
completely.
read it, you'll be like, oh yeah, that was good, but it
Yeah.
won't be
Quest.
Quest. What's Quest? I don't know that one, but I
You've there's
also
the
have to
big
kill the video.
yeah,
Sorry, dude,
it's
we're
the
out of time.
the big deep sea one that you and James read.
Swarm.
Swarm.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, exactly that, right? Just
Yeah.
science thriller
Hmm.
beach read. It's a bloody good beach
Mm.
read. Mm.
Highly
Like,
recommend Swarm, listeners.
yeah, I remember reading Swarm because I
Mm.
think I got a copy on holiday and it did the round within the group. I think Neil read it, James read it, a mutual friend of ours,
Hmm.
and you read like the same copy got battered.
Yeah,
And for such a dense plus page book, it okay, it's not always breakneck speed, but it was riveting. I
it
literally
was
thought,
really
I
good.
mean, the blurb was like the next Crichton is here, and I've followed that guy since. He's done a lot of stuff that doesn't. I've got two. He's done a lot of stuff that kind of doesn't interest me on spec. Like he
Right.
hasn't done the next Swarm. He hasn't done
Hmm.
like the same style and themes. The next
Mm.
big bit. This not. I'm saying this is Magnus.
Magnus
I
Opus.
I did not follow up with my promise to talk like Ira Glass, did I? And take it slow. But that was a stunning book. I guess
Hmm.
if you liked Sphere and you want more, check out Swarm by Frank, German name.
Mm.
So what?
Insert German name.
Yeah, I guess Swarm deep adventure
Yeah,
thing.
yeah. Wasn't
Um,
the rights to that bought by a Hollywood actress?
I think Uma Thurman. I think we
That's
followed it
it,
for a while because
yes.
we were thinking this
Yeah.
will make a perfect movie, and then we
Mm.
realized maybe a better TV show, and it's just been in
Definitely, it's
hijinks.
a TV series.
Mm,
It's
I
sort of
sort of wonder if
density
it'll
and
be better as one of those B TV shows than a big HBO one because of how ludicrous it gets.
oh yeah, it is far
Just for
fetched and
listeners, it's the onset concept is that the life of the ocean get
hmm
all in sync and attack us on land.
hmm
Whales start attacking boats. Very
yeah.
deep sea crab. Like there's this one cool scene where millions of these like white albino crabs from the deep sea just storm a beachside town and just wreak havoc. Very poisonous jellyfish start swarming all fishing boats, like
Hmm.
Portuguese man of war jellyfish just swarm all sorts of ports. Even the worms, like deep sea
Even to
worms,
the very
start like
yeah,
going for like oil pipelines and causing like underwater. Just
yeah,
very it's but it
ruptures
sounds
and
silly, but like Sphere, it's done in a way that you're along for the ride. You're not.
yeah.
For me, I wasn't going. This is silly. Like
Hmm.
it has enough of the science.
Mm.
It's explained how and why it could happen.
Hmm.
Long read, like we say, it's a big, but if you
It
like
is a
Sphere, I think you
beast.
would definitely dig Swarm. I was saying the right Michael Crichton book, I think you would dig. I'd love to have a
Mm.
convert. I don't know, maybe Jurassic Park with you, or maybe even the Andromeda. The and
Andromeda
I'm
strain.
slowing suddenly. Maybe even the Andromeda strain, because I think that's a fairly short 200 page
Mm.
one. I think it's very in the
Okay.
moment. It's like live, so it's. I think the novel is set in the hour after an event.
Right.
So
Okay. Yeah.
I think from what I know, but we'll
Hmm.
see. We've got a lot to get through in the year.
Yeah.
Regarding Yumi and the Painter,
Hmm.
when the time comes, you might just have to solo review it. I'm keeping
Yeah,
my
that's
eye out
fine.
for it, but if I have a copy before you finish, I'll do everything I can to race it, but let's
Hmm.
not hold it up or anything like that.
No, 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 of course not.
Mm,
But I'm making headway. It is
nice.
slow, but it's progress, I must say.
Nice.
Yeah. I look forward to that one in the future.
Yeah, right. Interesting read so far, or keep
Yeah.
scoring and
Yeah,
surprise me again.
I won't say too much, but
Mm.
I'm still there for the jaunt, and I've not at any point gone. "Oof." That's
But you're
my first
not.
Brandon Sanderson novel as well.
I feel like it's
This
your
is
first fan. I guess don't go into it, but from what I know about Sanderson, he's hard fantasy, and you're
yeah,
not too
definitely.
big a fantasy fan when it comes to novels, right? Like Neil Gaiman has
Oh,
that urban
yeah.
feel, but something with, I don't know, unicorns and centaurs
Mm.
and
I haven't read anything. It's not to say I'm not in that world or have no interest in it. It's just I haven't actually read anything from that
mm,
genre, really. I've never read The Lord of the Rings, for instance.
mm. It could be because I was talking to someone in my book group, it's a sci-fi book group, and he's joined and he's not much of a reader. And I think after the first session he came, he started reading books and he just
This is something you just finished, isn't it? Doctor
yeah, well, there's still that Wind Through the Keyhole,
Right, okay.
which I believe is like a standalone. I think
Yeah,
it's vehicularly set a few books ago when they're having a camp and Brolin tells a
right.
story. So it's that
Yeah,
story. So it's
right,
another
okay.
flashback. But I finished the Dark Tower, the book, which is book eight, nine. I don't know.
Seven.
Seven.
Mhm.
I'm not going to say a thing, Toby. I know you said we'll
No.
have a little review of it, but
Mhm.
you're going to have to read it if you want to know my
Okay,
thoughts.
okay.
Just so you know, book one is actually pretty tiny and it's broken into like
Gunslinger.
four bite size. It's almost like he wrote it like experimentally,
Yeah,
just like his four short stories about one character, and they
right,
actually
okay.
tied together. But even if they didn't tie together, you could read it.
Yeah.
But yeah, they get beefy. Hoo-hoo.
They do get beefy. That's the that and the fact that I don't own all seven books yet. I'm still missing Wizard in the Glass.
Okay, but that's like five, 4 or 5 or something. That's a fair dip
Mm,
in. You've got a really fun ride, as it were.
okay,
That's all I'll say.
okay.
Mm.
Where does it, can I ask where it ranks in your Stephen King
Nope,
canon?
you can
No,
once we've
you
read
went
it.
to Reddit. Fair enough. Okay, good
uh,
point.
yeah, I don't know.
Okay,
I won't put any spoilers in.
no, okay. Would
But I'm glad I read it. The
I tell
rest, I don't
you,
know.
so parking that to the side for a minute, I tell you what I have been very interested in, and the adverts have really grabbed me. And it's not something that normally would float my boat, but the zone of interest. You heard of that? The film, the
Yes.
A24.
Oh, goodness me. Yeah, of course. Jonathan Glazer's
Mm,
recent one. And the actress was from a very recent hit, Anatomy of a Fall,
right.
which I watched, and she was superb. It's a really,
Hmm.
really quiet, detailed film, Anatomy of a Fall.
Hmm. Mm.
So yeah, definitely.
Just
Sounds
what?
tiring.
Yeah.
It sounds like I want
What
to
what
watch it.
a what a concept for a film.
Mm,
It's really, really, really harrowing, but off screen.
right. Just the never show like the unnervingness of
Mm.
the normality, I suppose.
Yeah,
That's what's so
and it's
scary
the
about it, right?
I don't know if you've seen the trailers for it, but the sound they use.
I
Um,
I think I started to watch it
just-
and I was like, okay, it's Jonathan Glazer. He's just one of those
mm.
directors that are for like who's that guy we were talking about recently who did Meg 2 actually, but
Oh
Ben,
yeah,
the
Ben
British guy.
Wheatley.
Ben Wheatley, like he just gets a free pass.
Mm.
He's not doing so many films that it's boring. So even if I don't like the film, I'm gonna go in blind and
Yeah, yeah,
give me a ride. And Jonathan Glazer is very seldom. He's done like less films than Tarantino, He's only got
yeah.
4 films out or something.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, it looks
So
good, the
yeah,
trailer.
yeah, that's very yeah. The trailer makes the sound effects in the trailer are just harrowing.
Mm,
And there's no, it's not even. It's just the use of deep bass and that sort of.
nice. I'm really hoping to throw some Hans, I don't know, Fowler at you
Hmm.
over the next few years.
Okay.
I'll talk about it more when the time comes, but here's what's super
Mm.
interesting. He was German during World War II, who was
Mm.
like anti-Nazi, but chose to
Mm.
stay. And he wasn't part
Right.
of any resistance, but it just meant that he lived in the areas and was like didn't really believe in it or support it.
Mm.
But so it was a first-hand witness who wrote novels. His most famous, I've already read, A Wolf Amongst Wolves,
Yeah.
inspired by something that happened, but not based on a true story, about an elderly couple who find out their son died for
Mm.
Hitler, and their form of resistance was just literally these handmade postcards, like anti
Mm-hmm.
Nazi party slogans, and just putting it out on a park bench. Just that,
Mm.
literally just writing a note the size of a postcard,
Mm.
like Hitler is lying, and
Mm.
just putting that out in somewhere public. And that was their form of resistance, which obviously with was like a sentence by death sort of,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and it's a super, super good book. And
Mm.
just there's so much more interesting to tell you about the author, but I'll wait because I don't want to blow the material.
Yeah.
But just
See,
knowing he was there makes it just
yeah.
first-hand accounts of what was going on, and
Mm.
not believing in it is
Where
fascinating.
do you stand on this sort of?
I'm against fascism, Tobe. How about you?
Yeah, yeah. Well, just like as a form of consumption media retrospect, looking back on the probably one of the darkest times in human history, amongst many, but one of the darkest. Because I'm recently talking about this with my sister. She's very much into reading sort of autobiographies from that period. So Anne
Mm,
Frank's diary, Boy in
hmm
the Striped Pajamas. There's one she's reading about a girl, something that's again set in Auschwitz and around Auschwitz.
hmm
And seeing it through the eyes of the innocents and all this sort of thing.
So
She's
more
very much into,
The Holocaust
yeah,
side than
yeah,
the military war
hmm
attack
yeah, yeah,
tactical
exactly.
side.
And all of that sort of very dark, dark, dark,
Mm,
just grime and horror of humanity. I find that there is enough around me
mm,
to fill that, if you want to call it void, rather than spending a lifetime or a life surrounded by negativity and sort of just dark musings and people unhappy and life's
mm.
too much of a struggle and everything,
Basically,
to
you're
then
reading
go
about a
and read
Holocaust when there's
to
horrible things happening
escape
now.
fantasy into something even darker.
Mm.
Does that make, does by
But
going
I don't think she's
darker, does it make
escaping
the,
reality, right?
no, but does by going darker make the present lighter, do you think?
Oh, I see. Well, I mean, there's that
Or more
sense
palatable?
of, okay, the world is not in a good place right now, sort of ecologically and stuff, but we're
Mm,
also, it is hard to be reminded, we are also living in the best times that has ever
mm,
existed. Not all
mm.
of us in the world, but as a world, this is probably the
Yeah,
most it's ever experienced of freedom and liberalism and choice and
yeah,
option. And it's quite easy to forget that, not forget it, but to just think this is horrible
yeah.
and not to be appreciative of that. I don't know. Of course, this stuff needs to be remembered
Mm,
because it's like, I can't really put it in words, but my friend was saying when we want look back at trying to understand history, quite often we start with the art.
mm.
You know what I mean? That was there to capture it in very like no one's gonna buy the report by the officers of
No.
what they found, but you're gonna read someone's sort of I guess when you say you're writing a book, you're taking it poetical, but you're trying to sum up feelings more, right?
Mm,
Otherwise, it's like the difference between reading a novel and a play. A play is very here is the information, but it's in a sterile way. Here's where they
yeah,
stood. He has raised his voice. He exits. That is where it
yeah.
goes. But
Very directional.
I mean, of
Yeah,
course, like if I listen to a lot of crime podcasts,
yeah.
and it's like, why are you listening to that? And it's like sometimes like I have literally been listening to one at the moment, and it's called like the trial.
Mm,
So it's very unobjective, but it's like, here's what happened at court today regarding this case.
mm.
The Brianna Gay case is very current, and it's been following that, and it's just brutal and horrible. And sometimes I'm like, why am I listening to this?
Yeah, yeah. No, this is my question. Why
But
are
then is
you?
it not important?
Is it?
Well, isn't it?
You're listening to it.
But do you think that's important in the world? Like these things are happening and they're horrible, and someone needs to bear witness in some way. Um, Quite a heavy tangent for the book sphere.
Yeah. Another
Um,
end to a YA stuff.
but I feel like we made it clear we weren't coming back to Sphere, so people could have
Yeah.
tuned out when we got on the Holocaust. Remember it or nah? Um,
Yeah.
hmm.
Darks. But yeah, okay, cool.
End us on a light note, Toby.
Um,
Put you on the spot.
Yeah, a bit on the spot there. Thank you for listening, Sabrina.
Quickly, what have you been watching? What's your film of last year? Because this is
Oh,
our
oh,
February episode. So
yeah, a film of last year. Oh gosh, that's another
what's the
one of
last film you
those.
watched? I'll stream it
Ooh.
down so we can get moving. What's the
I,
last
I
film you
watched
watched?
Haunt on Netflix.
Haunt. I never
Yeah,
heard
so,
of it.
so it's a horror film, which goes back to the dark stuff, but it was, it's escapism in a sort of, oh, I'm scared way. But yeah, it's about a group of teenagers that went to a haunted house, extreme haunted house, found a pamphlet, followed the pamphlet took them to this big sort of out in the sticks warehouse that had been turned into this haunted house by a group of circus freaks, basically. And these kids go in there and get mashed up, and a couple escape.
Quite B movie, or done quite
Bit,
well, kind of polished.
done quite well actually,
A
pretty
good
good.
Netflix movie.
Yeah,
Is it
definitely.
Netflix made it, or they're just
I think it might be,
pumping
yeah.
it out?
Mhm. I
Okay,
think it
nice.
might be. But yeah, it was pretty good. Like the main villains, the clowns, as it were suitably creepy. Lots of
Haunt. I must
standing and
admit, I've never
staring
heard
and
of that
not
one.
saying anything. Yeah, it's called Haunt.
Nice.
Cool.
Let us know your thoughts on Sphere, listeners, and Michael
Yes.
Crichton
Hmm.
and the Holocaust. No, let's not go there again.
Yeah,
Um,
part of that. Yeah, but thank you again for coming, and listening. I hope you're
mm.
enjoying it. Like we did say at the beginning of the thing, it'd be nice to get a couple of comments just to say hi.
Hello, I have listened to it. Just that.
Just that.
Is there some weird law or something where if someone asks for a reference, you can't say no? Like
Hmm.
at work?
Hmm.
Is that right? I don't
I
know if
don't
that's
know.
true. But so then there's this thing of like, you're not allowed to technically. I don't know what is true. This is like secondhand information down a pub, but someone's saying you're not really allowed to like slate someone
Right.
in an interview, in
Yeah.
a reference.
Yeah. No, you can't do. Yeah, you can't say anything negative about a person that's asked for a reference.
Crazy. But so there's a sort of like hidden code of like, I have worked with this person in these dates.
Hmm.
And it's like I haven't lied. I have said I work with you. And it's like code for like, okay.
Yeah.
He's got
Right.
nothing
Okay.
nice to say.
Yeah.
Send us one of those. No, okay, we're getting thirsty now. But like and subscribe and all the usual things.
Hmm.
If you do have something to say or a book that you think we might dig or interested to
Hmm.
hear our, let's face it, limited scope on,
Yeah.
send that in. We'll see what we
Yeah,
can
that'd be
do.
good. We do have another. The next episode is probably going to be the Lovecraft. What was that? What's
Oh
the
yeah, yeah.
the
Let's crank
Shadow
that
of the
out.
Mirror? Was it?
Shadow, Shadow Mirror. Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know. You'll see it in the title, of course.
yeah.
But yeah, we're gonna hit
That's our next episode.
some more Lovecraft. It's always fun.
And we also have to do the follow-up to Alice.
Oh, you are Alice's mum. Yeah, God, I
Mm.
packed it. It's gonna take me a while to find it now. I've had a clean up since, but a
So
couple of
that's
fun
coming again.
ones.
Yeah, maybe we'll get that out for next Christmas.
Oh yeah, we're gonna build the suspense on that one.
Part two.
I feel like it's that thing where and straight away we die in it. Hey, we're going to wrap it up on there. I want to thank you for listening and I hope you enjoyed. Join us again next episode. And until then, support your local bookstores and have a great day.